Hola, mi nombre es Ángel Aldana, soy un emigrante mexicano, tengo 25 años aquí en Alabama y después de mucho tiempo trabajando en la construcción y en diferentes partes como cocinero y en landscaping, este, decidí aplicar para arreglar mi estancia aquí en Estados Unidos. Entonces, una de las organizaciones que me ayudó fue Adelante. Después de un largo proceso de luchar contra las cortes en Atlanta, por unos 4 o 5 años, hemos ganado mi caso. Gracias a Dios he tenido la residencia hace unos 2 meses, pero es un largo proceso.
It's very relieving to know that my dad has his green card now, because as an immigrant and the son of an immigrant, you're always fearing going out of your house, leaving your house, even if it's just to get groceries. You never know what could happen. With my dad's case, I played a significant role in helping him solve it, because I suffer from a couple of medical conditions, and those surgeries have really helped me, get better and be able to play drums in the marching band.
I was very scared when my dad's case was ongoing, especially because I had just started college. I was in my first year of college, and Jessica kept asking me questions like, what would happen if your dad got deported, like with you and your brother? And I was thinking, like, I would be fine because my dad had taught me how to survive on my own. Like on the weekends, when I got my first car, on the weekends we would tend to work with my dad on my car, and he would always tell me, like, you have to learn how to do things by yourself and take care of your brother. That comes to happen one day. So I would be fine, but my brother was just now starting high school, so I kept thinking, like, what would I do with him if I could possibly, like, take care of him? And then I think the hardest part was that we had heard that Atlanta was one of the hardest courts to go to for immigration cases. But I remember Jessica saying, like, the judge that your dad has seems to be very fair. I think the thing that scared me the most was that a person's case went before us. They got to, like, testify before us, and they had a very negative outcome. And I kept thinking, like, Jessica told me that this judge is fair and my dad is gonna have a fighting chance. He's gonna be fine. And
so Angel has been a core member of Adelante since the very start, when the organization was founded about 6 years ago now. And so when he came to me, and I think it was 2015, and this news story had come out that his former lawyer, who it turns out wasn't even a lawyer anymore, had been scamming a bunch of people and basically putting them in deportation proceedings without them knowing. I committed to just look into his case and see if there was, anything to be worried about. And we found out that he was actually on the brink of being ordered deported. He was scheduled for a court date very soon, his final court date, where the judge would make the decision whether he would leave or stay. And if he had had to show up in court that day, or if he hadn't showed up, he would have been ordered deported. And been separated from his 2 wonderful kids, who have also been, longtime volunteers at Adelante and absolutely need their dad around. So Adelante doesn't do a lot of individual deportation cases or direct legal representation, but given on his role in the community and just what an extreme and horrendous case this was, we decided to take it on and to fight to the bitter end to make sure that Angel could stay here.
Me emociona porque sé lo que es la lucha, sé lo que mucha gente vive en carne propia, lo que yo viví, cómo es que luchamos día a día para tener nuestras familias unidas, simplemente para ir a la tienda tenemos como el miedo de no regresar a la casa y dejar a los bebés o a los niños. Entonces,
I think it's also important to remember that it should not be this hard. It should not be this exceptional to win a case like this. And something I really respect about Angel is that he has always been here with us as we are fighting for people who haven't lived in the US as long, who crossed the border last week, who have a criminal record, who have a messier, more complicated, less sort of perfect and deserving situation. And I think we're here to fight for those folks too, and those folks deserve relief as well.